Hey friends, it's Emily from Life So Savory, and today we are going to make a really cute tank top just like this one. So I made this, I think 2 summers ago when my husband gave me a pile of t-shirts that he didn't want anymore. And I was like, I like the color of this. Maybe I can make it into something for myself. So I turned it into a tank top, and this is seriously one of my favorite tanks. I wear it all the time. So today I'm going to show you how to do that. So use any shirt larger than a shirt size that you normally wear, and then turn it into this. Doesn't have to be from your husband. You can grab it from a thrift store or anything like that, but it's so quick and easy to turn it into a tank top, and I'll show you how. Okay, so before we get to that, okay, just checking my comments. I also want to show you. So I've been gone for the last couple weeks. The kids finished school. It was busy. My parents were here for a little bit. It was busy. And then my husband and I took a trip for our 20th wedding anniversary, which is later in July. And it was so fun. We went on a cruise in the Mediterranean to Greece and Italy. And we just had the best time getting away. And some of you may have seen, I posted a little teaser on Instagram and Facebook showing you the water bottle carrier that I made for our trip. And I will be sharing the free full pattern and tutorial with you this Friday. So it will be up and live then. But I did want to just show you it in person. It was so cute. And I literally wore this every day of our trip, all day long, through all the adventures. And actually one lady said we were on we were walking through a city in a group, and she's like, I just love your pink strap. I can always know where our group is going. So it was a little bit bright, but this is what I had on hand when I was making this. And so I just love it. So it is big enough to hold a Nalgene, or the cruise ship gave us these boxes of water. And so every day I'd put one of those boxes. I don't know how big it was. Maybe not a pint, maybe a quart. It definitely was pretty big, but it totally fit in here. And then you can just cinch up the top, keep your water bottle safe. And then the best part was the zipper right here, which I kept my phone and my ID. So if something happened to me, people would know who the dead body was. And then some cash. And there's still some receipts in here. And there's an outside pocket for and earrings. I guess I took off my earrings one day and I put them in there. I'll have to put those away. For non-important things that I really wasn't worried about, I would keep on this outside pocket, and it was super accessible. But anyway, it was really perfect for the trip. And if you are traveling at all and just want a place to hold a water bottle and a couple personal things, this is going to be the pattern for you. So it is going to be live again on Friday. So make sure you come back to Life So Savory and check it out. It has buckles on both sides. And actually my plan is to make a second strap with the same buckles. That's a little, just one I can hold, not an over the shoulder one. Okay. So you can check this out. It is so fun. And I got so much wear out of this. I was really, really glad I made it before our trip. So anyway, check out all the details on this on Friday. It's going to be great. And it's going to be another, of course, free pattern for you. So all the details on this, plus a printable PDF pattern coming soon. You'll need a zipper, some buckles, maybe a little toggle. But of course, just like always, you can edit this pattern to be what you want and use the features you like, and don't use the features you don't like. So that is what's coming soon. And I just wanted to show that to you today. Okay, today we are going to turn this t-shirt, which is a men's large from Old Navy. It's very soft. It's super comfortable. And of course, I could just wear it as a tee, but you can see it's actually quite long compared to where I'm wearing my tank top, right? That's where I like to wear it. And then this one is going quite a bit. So it's definitely too long. I want to make a tank top, so I don't want the sleeves. And we'll also take in the sides just a little bit. Of course, depending on the size shirt, then the more you would take in or the less you would take in. It's the same tutorial that I used for this one that I'm wearing, but today I'm going to experiment. I'll show you this a little bit up close. So this one I used bindings of a different color. Okay, I don't know if I love it. I did retain the original. This is the original neck, and I think it fits fine. It's not tight, but it is like a high neck. So I'm gonna look at it. I think it's the original neck. Yeah, because it has that on it. Before I go saying it's the original neck, I want to make sure. But I think what I'm going to try today is just the bottom that I cut off. We're going to make bands out of it, and we're just going to sew them on so it's all the same color, and see how that looks. Okay, so we'll have another option. So there is a free pattern for this. It's called the Women's Boxy Tank. And of course, you can just use the pattern to sew this from fabric. So you can make a tank that looks like this just using fabric. Easy to, I've done it both ways, but it also works with a t-shirt. So today I'm showing you the t-shirt version. If you don't have the Boxy Tank pattern printed, which I didn't, it's based off the Women's Boyfriend tee, both from my site. So today I had the Boyfriend tee printed and not the Boxy Tank. So I'm going to show you the edits that I made to the Boyfriend tee to create the Boxy Tank, and we'll get the same result. There's like a burr on these scissors. Good thing I ran my paper scissors, but I feel like someone maybe used them while I was gone. We'll get the same result as if you're using the Boxy Tank free pattern. Totally up to you. I just didn't really feel like printing. And the written tutorial, which is currently scrolling across the bottom of the screen and linked in the description of this video on both YouTube and Facebook, will give you the link to the tutorial for this. So if this isn't making sense, or you missed a part, or you need to go back, click through and check that out. But it's just a very boxy, straight shape. This isn't really shaped either on the sides or at the top. Very simple, and it's actually the same as I used on the Boyfriend tee. Also sort of a less shaped pattern. Okay, so here's the Boxy Tank, a front piece. And what I did to create the tank top, so instead of having my shoulder come over here, we're going to take in the shoulder about 1 inch. Okay. Take in the shoulder about 1 inch, and then we're just going to ease that down to about a 1/2 inch at the underarm. Okay, so I don't want the underarm like super low, but I do want it a little bit lower than if I were adding a sleeve. Okay, so that's it. The neckline doesn't matter because I'm just going to use the neckline that's on the shirt. But if you were cutting it from fabric, you would want to either use the higher or lower neckline. Both are included in the Boyfriend tee. Okay, if you have questions while I'm going along, please ask and let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep doing this and see what happens. Okay, so I'd like to cut both sides at the same time. So what I'm going to try to do now is lay this out flat and then fold it in half. This has been sitting in my drawer probably for a couple years because I think I got it both shirts at the same time. My husband did a purge, and neither one of these were deemed that they should stay. The most important thing is to center the neckline because we're going to keep that, and then it'll be the back and the front center seam. I don't know if I can't do this in one thing. I might have to, if it feels too like wrinkly or it's not laying flat enough, I might have to do it in two. Oh, that feels flatter. Okay, cut it apart and do it in 2 sections because we don't want it to be off. I don't want it to be off. I don't want to be wearing a crooked t-shirt. Okay, so laying flat. Now we're going to take this and place it on here. Okay, and depending on the size of the t-shirt that you have, I wonder if this feels really long. Maybe not. No, that feels right. But it feels like this is way longer. Let me pull this down. I really like the length of this tank. So if this is longer, I want to, oh yeah, I'm going to shorten that a couple inches. Okay, because I like the fit or the length of it. All right, so I'm going to shorten this a little bit. Okay, show you my process of things. Now the shoulder seam, we're not going to be sewing the shoulder seam. We're going to leave the original seam so you can put the paper just slightly above the shoulder. You don't need it a big difference. It does not, it does, what do I want to say? The underarm is hitting right here just below the seam of the sleeve. So that's good. It's not on there. And then the rest of this. So we should have enough to cut bands from the bottom. If you want it really long, you may not be able to cut bands from the bottom just because you won't have the 1.5 inches or whatever that you might need. All right, so now we're just gonna whack this. Again, I'm not cutting the neckline at all. We're gonna leave the neckline as is. I'm just gonna cut the shoulder, the side seam, and across the bottom. And what was I gonna say? Oh, I'm using the front of the pattern piece, but of course the boxy tank has a front and the back, but we're mostly using this to cut the arm shape. So I'm just gonna use the front for both. Okay, so that cut, good thing I just pulled out this pretty sharp rotary cutter yesterday because I couldn't find my other one. So it's cutting through all the layers of fabric really well. Let's take a look at this before we cut the bindings because I want to make sure this is what I wanted. And there was a couple sort of lumps and bumps that felt in the side seam. All right, so we had a weird fold here. So I don't know if you can see, but there's like the fabric is extra, so we're going to chop that off. There's just a tiny bit of the arm, the original sleeve hem that got included on, must be the front pieces. So I'm just going to scoop this just a little bit out more to get rid of those. So we're not sewing through that bulk as well. And now we should have the basic tank shape. Okay, so at this point you can check and see, all right, if I add a little binding on there, is it going to be thin enough? Or do I want to take in the shoulders a little bit more? Okay, so I want this to be boxy, but how far over do I want it on my shoulders? So let me see. Pin this here. Seems maybe a little too wide. So I'm going to fold this again and take in just a little bit more from the shoulders. And then I'm going to blend that into I'm not going to touch the underarms. So we're just going to scoop that out and sort of blend it in, not really touching the underarm here. Okay, that feels better. I've noticed lately a lot of tank styles are really narrow at the shoulders and then they sort of scoop out. It seems kind of like a racer back on the back, but it's also a racer back on the front. I don't know. That seems like a really popular style. So maybe this will be, you could make it a little bit like that if you wanted as well. All right, so the bottom of the shirt, I'm going to take right here, and I'm going to hope to cut 2 strips of fabric to use one for each arm for the bindings. Okay, so now it does have a seam on here, and so I'm going to line up the seam a little bit better. If you needed to for fabric, you could always unpick the hem. I think I'm going to be able to get enough fabric out of it, but that would be an option as well. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is line this up flat and then cut off the hem. And then I'll see how much I have left. Okay, so I think we can do 1.25 inch bands, which will be a little bit on the thinner side, but should work. Okay, so we're going to add thin bands to the arms. And then I'm going to, of course, go ahead and cut both the side seams off. So now I have 2 pieces of fabric. and I can use those to cut the armbands. All right, are you ready to sew? This is gonna be super quick. We put the bands on, we sew the side seams, we hem it, and done. But I just wanted to show you, and then I'll try it on, and hopefully it fits like I want. And then I have another great tank. So I seriously wear this one all the time. So I'm excited to have another one of this style because I love this. So we're gonna just rotate this. Why is this not wanting to rotate? Sorry. Rotate this so you can see my machines. Close your eyes if you get seasick, because apparently I was too lazy today to set up a separate camera for over at the machines, so I have to move this one. Okay. Also, I was going to mention that those of you who watch on YouTube, for at least the summer, I'm not going to keep my subscription to the streaming service that lets me stream live on 2 platforms at once, because it's kind of pricey, and I'm not doing lives every week because, you know, summer. So if you watch on YouTube, you might want to also make sure that you check out on Facebook, because that, if I'm live from starting next week, that is where I'll be live on. And then my plan is to, of course, download it and upload it to YouTube, but it wouldn't be live then. So just a little service announcement if you do watch these live on YouTube. Okay, so we're going to take the band and we're going to fold it in half with the right sides out. You can see how it's a little bit skinny. And then I'm going to take this shirt. We're going to open up that shoulder. Let's make sure this is long enough. Yeah. Okay. So when you're doing bands like this, remember you want to stretch 10 to 15% while you're sewing. So that is what I'm going to do. You can also stretch and pin it first if you don't feel comfortable doing it all in one method. I got to make sure my machine settings are right, because I was gathering on here yesterday, and that's the worst thing is to start sewing another project and realize you left the gathering settings on, and then what a mess to have to pick that out. So looks like I set it back, which is of course what I should do when I'm done gathering. I'm lining up the 3 raw edges of fabric, so the 2 edges of the band and the 1 of the tank top, and sewing those all really close. I'm not taking hardly any seam allowance. If I am cutting any fabric with the serger blade, I'm cutting shirt fabric, not band fabric, because I just really don't have any extra to deal with, because this is a skinny band. Usually I like to do 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches, but like you just heard me say, I had to cut this one 1.25 inches. So it is nice to usually have a little bit more fabric to deal with, but this can be done as well. And we are just going to have enough fabric to stretch that across the bottom. But worst case, I could always find another blue and put it on there. Would not worry me at all. So there we go. That is looking really cute. Okay, you can top stitch this or just leave the band plain. I'll probably try it plain and see if it lays okay. That shoulder is gonna look awesome. Look at that. Okay, so that lays really nicely on there, and it's gonna be hopefully comfy. All right, so now I'm gonna do the other shoulder. I'm just going to line up those 3 raw edges again. And so I usually don't stretch at the beginning. I usually start sewing, and then this second bit here, I start with the stretch. And you know, I always say 10 to 15%. Well, I don't know that I'm stretching 10 to 15%, but I've sewn enough bands and bindings that I know what it feels like to just stretch the binding or the band slightly. And so that is what I'm doing. This is not I'm not using an exact scientific method here, but I am using a trial and error, and having sewed many band technique. So again, if you're new to this, go ahead and measure your arm opening, measure the band, make sure it's 10 to 15% smaller. So say your opening is 20 inches, your shoulder, then you're going to want to cut the band 18 inches to be that 10% smaller. Okay, so use a calculator. Don't try to do it in your head unless it's a super easy opening size. And then I always like to just double check that there aren't any holes, that I didn't miss any of those 3 layers. Okay, looks great. So then the next step is to sew the side seams. So you want to make sure you flip open these bands that we just sewed and then line those up so that the underarm, the bands are lined up nicely. And then we'll continue down the side seam. If you're using your sewing machine for this and not a serger, totally fine. Just make sure, because this is a knit fabric project, that you're using a knit stitch or a zigzag for all of these seams so that you don't pop any seams when you actually put it on. What a waste of sewing if the first time you wear it, you break all the seams. And we're just going to sew down one side. Again, I told you this is going to be so quick and easy. I need to grab my darning needle. So you guys have seen me do this a million times, especially if you follow me. But so here we have the underarm, okay, and the bindings and the shirt. And you can't just cut this serger tail because it will just fray down. So I like to insert this nice fat darning needle that I've had forever, insert the serger tail, and then thread at least 1 inch of that tail into the seam. And from there you can cut it. And I have never had those come out. You can also put a little bit of fray stop, like liquid, if you feel like it's going to come out. But once you're inserted in there, and then that's a really nice finish. You can also fold over this serger seam allowance and then stitch with your sewing machine to get to lay flat if you want to do that as well. And that would also then finish that serger tail as well as make the seam lay flat. But I am not bothered by those seams. But some people I know are really irritated by the seams in their clothes. So that might be an instance where you'd want to do that. All right, so I'm lining up the second side seam. Okay, starting with lining up the bands for the top edge. I like to start on the top edge like that because it really matters that those 2 edges line up well. On the bottom edge where the hem is, it's a little bit more forgiving. And so if I end up with it like not quite even, I can either just cut it off or line it up when I'm hemming, but it's not such a big deal. So rather than sew from the bottom to the top, when I'm doing something like this, I always sew from the top to the bottom to get those edges to line up the best that I possibly can. All right, so let's finish this second underarm here. Just going to insert this needle right into the middle of the seam. Put the tail in there and then pull it through. If you can't get it through, then sometimes there's like a knot on the end, and I will thread it through the needle and then cut that off before pulling it through, because sometimes there's like a bunch of threads and then it gets a little bit stuck in the tip there. Okay. Oh, this is not always matching, but that's pretty good. I'll take that. And it's not always perfect, but it's definitely, you're not even going to see it. It's going to be under my arm, in my armpit, and I hope no one's looking there. So I won't worry about it being too perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to swing this over to the cover stitch, raise this up just a little bit, and we're going to hem it. Okay, and then the shirt's going to be done. and I'll model it for you. And what an easy tank top, especially if you have someone getting rid of shirts that you can use. So for me, free tank. I love it. I think I really love using the same color fabric as opposed to the one that I'm wearing that is different color bands, but both work, especially if you don't have enough fabric. All right, I'm going to start on one side seam. Looks like it's, I want to make sure this is all lined up, because if you don't, I might, I don't think one of these needles is threaded. I think I'm going to pull these out. I find with the cover stitch, if everything is not like really lovely when you start, then it gets irritated and messes up. And then I'm stuck picking it out, and I don't love that either. Okay, so I'm just gonna rethread the needles here real quick. With the presser foot up, I can pull that the thread out. I might do a quick test here because I really don't love picking out the cover stitch. I'll grab a scrap. Okay, there's one needle. What was I sewing yesterday that I would have used this? Oh, a dress for Rose, and I hemmed it, but I don't know what condition I left the machine in. Okay, so there's that. I'm gonna reach over here, grab this piece. I'm not gonna do a real hem, but we're just gonna sew down it. Make sure everything is sewing nicely. Okay, it sews good on the front, nice chain stitch on the back. Looks like we're in business. All right, I always like to start on a side seam or around there so that when I finish, it's not in a very apparent place. I'm going to slide it under, and then as I go, I'm just turning under about 3/4 of an inch and sewing with a close 2-needle hem. So on this machine, there's room for 3 needles, and you can just use 2. You can actually just use 1 if you want to chain stitch. But depending on the placement of your needles, it can be a 2-stitch wide hem or a 2-stitch narrow. So I have the 2 needles placed right next to each other. So this is a 2-thread narrow hem. And then I have woolly nylon fuzzy thread for the backing, which is super comfortable against your skin, as well as nice and stretchy for a hem. And I think I have light grain here on this blue shirt, but I don't really care that it's not quite perfect color. Gray is a good neutral, and I sew with it a lot unless something is really a different color, then I might change. All right, so when you get back to the beginning, you can see how it's sort of puckered because those threads tighten up because I shoved the hem under the presser foot. So I always trim off the bulk. There's usually like a tail that's there as well as the threads that came around. And then I'm just gonna sew over and overlap about 1 to 2 inches. And then raise the presser foot. I take this is how sometimes needle threads get messed up. Pull out a little bit from the needles, pull it out from under the needles, and then chain off and cut. And then because if you pull those needles, there's this extra needle thread, and you can just grab a pin and grab those. And then I just tie it off before cutting. I don't think you technically have to, but I do. Little tie, little cut, and the hem is done. Voila. See if it will focus on the hem. There you go. Okay, so there's the hem. There's the back of it. It looks great. All right, I'm going to leave you looking at my sewing machines for a second while I put this shirt on, and then I'll turn the camera and you can see the final result. Hopefully it's what I anticipated, but how quick and easy was that tank top to make? And it's seriously so comfy because it's made out of a t-shirt, and t-shirts are always really, really comfortable. Okay, the length on this is good, I think. Well, I guess I'll use the camera as a mirror. So my first look will be with you. But so far, so good. Oh, there you go. Look at the rest of the messy house. And I'll back up. So cute, right? I think it's, I'm just going to see it so you can see my face. I think I love it. I mean, it's what I had before, but that's what I was going for. So I really like this. It's not too low, not too high, still full bra coverage. And there, the straps, it's like a little bit narrower. So I might have to see about wearing a little different bra with that so they don't rest out here. But the length is good, long enough to pull, long enough to bunch up a little bit, give you the full twirl. The hem feels good. The arms are good. I think it is sporty and nice. This is a little bit lower than the other version I was wearing, but I think still totally fine. And probably because I cut that extra little bit off because of the shoulder seam. So I'm not sure if this was a men's large. That other one might have been a men's extra large. So just depending on what the size shirt you're starting with, you know, you'll have a little bit of differences. I need to press this. You can see a little bit of pulling here from the band, but I think once I wash it, it will be fine. And then I love leaving the original neckline. It fits so well and it's perfect. So there's my new tank in like 20 minutes or less. Super quick and easy. And I hope you'll use this. Please share photos online. If you do, both Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest and YouTube, you can tag me at Life So Savory. That's it. It's the same. And I will get it. And I do love to see what you're sewing. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I'll be just over here wearing my tank and editing my water bottle holder posts. So I'll show a few of you who, if you weren't here at the beginning, this is the water bottle holder that I made for our trip earlier this month. And I wore it literally every day. It probably has sweaty straps, but it was perfect. Holds big water bottles and then holds like your phone and an ID and just a few small things you need going out. It's not going to hold a wallet. It's not going to hold a big bunch of cards, but it's just enough when you want to carry the bare minimum, but you really need water, which is what I needed when we were getting off the cruise ship every day and doing things. I needed an ID, some money, and a water bottle. And that's what I was carrying around. So this is great. This will be free on Life So Savory on Friday. So come check out that printable pattern. And then I'll be excited to see what you sew it, what kind of summer adventures you sew it for. So thanks for watching. I will see you again, should be next week. I'll have kids home next week, so we'll see. But I think so. They're all at camp this week. So I mean, some day camp, some overnight camp, but during the day I have some calm. So I'm trying to crank out a lot of work. So anyway, I'll see you guys next week and we'll sew something fun for summer. So have a great week and I'll talk to you later. Bye.